Since we're about 4 weeks now through the NFL season, this is about the time I've done in years past. I don't think I did it last year, but I've done it in some years past, where I started doing like power rankings. It's kind of a way to talk about where I'm seeing teams fall out. Could represent a little bit of my perspective or opinions on some teams and who some of the favorites might be in each conference, who some of the Super Bowl favorites may be. So I did want to go ahead and kind of try doing this again this year. I'll probably do it every 2 weeks or so, because doing it every week just gets to be too much. There's too much variance, and I just don't have enough time to add one more thing every single week. But every couple of weeks, I can certainly do that. So since we've seen 4 weeks, I think we can at least start, to get a feel for what we're seeing for some teams. Not for all of them, but a good number of them. You're starting to get a sense of who's really good, who's middle of the road, and who's the Jaguars. So you can check out my post-week 4 power rankings. They are in the description box down below. All teams from 1 to 32. We're going to start off with the fun stuff. Let's go down to the bottom. The bottom 5 teams. You got the Giants and Jets are 1 and 3. Got their first wins of the season in week 4 here. The Jets beating the Titans in overtime. The Giants beating the Saints in overtime. But let's be clear, they do suck. They do suck, and we know that right now. And based off of the way they've played the first few weeks, they deserve to be somewhere in the bottom, because they are among the bottom. The Detroit Lions, you might look at number 30 and say, wait, they're winless, and they're the Lions, and Lions gonna Lion, so why would you have them ahead of the Houston Texans, who actually have a win? Because if you watch the Lions, you know that this team isn't total crap, they're just crap. Does that make sense? Like, the Houston Texans are total crap, especially with Davis Mills starting. They are total, complete crap. The Lions just do Lions things to Lions themselves out of Lions wins. But they have played games in a competitive fashion, where the Texans haven't played all of their games in a competitive fashion. So that's why. And also because the one team that the Houston Texans beat was in week 1, and it was Jacksonville, who absolutely merits the lowest spot on this list. Like, they absolutely do. They're 0-4. Trevor Lawrence has looked so far. We got to call it as we see it. None of these rookie quarterbacks have looked fantastic so far, and Lawrence certainly belongs in that conversation. The Jaguars give up a lot of points. They've been struggling to score in some cases offensively. Urban Meyer's too busy getting it on with side chicks at the bar than he is with trying to win football games. This is Jacksonville. This is the Jaguars. They are the worst team in the league right now through 4 weeks. I mean, can we agree on that at least? There are only 2 winless teams in the league, and I'm sorry, I would pick the Lions over the freaking Jags right now. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? I was looking at the bottom of this, and there are probably a couple of teams that are a little surprising to be there. I'm not maybe as surprised as I thought with Pittsburgh Steelers being there, because I think going into the season, there was certainly a belief that Big Ben was washed and done, and sure looking that way. The Miami Dolphins obviously have the Tua injury, but this is a team that a lot of people were thinking had expectations to be and hopes to do good things in 2021, and it certainly hasn't started off the season that way. It's been a little bit of a disappointment, a little bit of a mess. It's still early, but yeah, not the best. Not the best at all. I know as you go through, you're going to look and you're going to say, okay, that's bullshit. How do you have the Colts, the Patriots, and the Vikings ranked ahead of teams that won 2 games like the Washington football team and the Chicago Bears? Well, if you watch the Chicago Bears and you watch some of these other teams, you fucking understand why I did. There's no question those are better teams right now than the Bears, period. The reason the Bears are even that high, frankly, is because of the fact that they have the Justin Fields dynamic. And once Dumb Dick Nagy, Numbskull Nagy, goes back to playing Andy Dalton, which he wants to, deep down in the cackles of his heart and soul, he wants to, then they'll go even lower on the list. And the Washington football team, you're 2-2, but your 2 wins came against shitty teams. And those were kind of damn near miraculous wins over the Giants and the Falcons. This is not a good team. with a very overrated ass defense that is playing like complete shit right now. Sorry. I take the Vikings over them, the Patriots over them, the Colts over them. Period. I would. That's just the way it is. You might also look and say, hey, the Bengals are 3-1. You got a middle of the pack because they're not even that good. They're not. If you've actually watched them, and I come back to this. Their one loss was to the sorry-ass Bears. Okay? They benefited from some cupcakes early on in the schedule. Like, two of the teams they've beaten are Jacksonville and Pittsburgh. I mean, come on. The record doesn't always tell the full story. It can be like, hey, 3-1 is 3-1, and they are 3-1. That means they are 3-1. That's true. But do you really think they're of the same caliber of a Cleveland Browns or a Baltimore Ravens right now? Shit. I don't think so. And you'll probably notice as well that I've got the Kansas City Chiefs up there at number 10. I mean, look at who they lost to. The Ravens are 3-1, and they barely lost to them. The Chargers are 3-1, and they barely lost to them. Like, the Chiefs' schedule hasn't been the easiest early on. Like, week 1 was a battle against Cleveland before they won. Yes, this past Sunday they played Philadelphia, who's easily the worst of the 4 teams that they played. But, if you were putting money on a team to potentially make a run in the AFC to come out of the Super Bowl, if you're being completely honest with yourself, you'd feel much safer about putting some money on the Chiefs than compared to a 3-1 team like the Browns or somebody like the frickin' Denver Broncos, for Christ's sakes, or the Cincinnati Bengals, right? So again, record is not always automatically equal to a reflection of where the team should rank. But as we get to the top 5 teams, early on, 4 games through the season, this feels about right. There could be a little bit of argument made for a couple other teams to slide into the bottom of that top 5, but I don't feel bad about this right now. We'll see what it looks like in a couple of weeks. But right now, got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 5. Their one loss was to the Rams, who are also 3-1, so that's not so bad. Number 4, you talk about the Rams. Obviously, the loss to the Cardinals was a bit of a rough one, especially at home on Sunday. But the Rams look good. They look legit. Stafford looks like he was absolutely the right move for them. They do look like a contender in the NFC. So this rating, I think, is reflective of that. The Chargers right now, to me, based off of what we've seen the first 4 weeks, this is opinion, to be fair, I would put them over the Buffalo Bills. I've got them at 3 because I look at the fact that the Chargers in back-to-back weeks beat the Chiefs and beat a now 3-1 Raiders team. That does have to carry a little bit of weight. And they lost by a whopping 3 points to the Dallas Cowboys. So they've had a tougher early stretch of schedule, and they've come out of it pretty well. I actually feel good about putting the Chargers there at 3 as opposed to the Bills, who have been beaten up on some scrub teams the past couple of weeks, like the Texans and the Washington football team and so forth. Number 2, it's the Dallas Cowboys. We can say what we want, but their one loss for this season was a nail-biter on the opening Thursday night game against the defending Super Bowl champions, who were also 3-1. So I can say, yes, it feels odd to have them at 2 as opposed to the Bucs at 5. I grant you. But you figure the Cowboys beat the Chargers. The Cowboys, just beat another 3-win team in Carolina. Zeke had a big day running the ball on Sunday. Dak looks good. Their defense is, but defense just is not as important anymore. This is where you start to get into common opponents, things like that, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you have the Dallas Cowboys ahead of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Well, I just kind of explained it, and who the fuck cares at this point? But I did want to give my props to the number 1 team on this list, and they belong there. It's the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I think this is sustainable. Do I think they'll be there in 4 weeks? Absolutely not. Count me in the not convinced. Count me in the not a believer category. But if you were going to make me a believer, their performance on Sunday against the Rams is certainly one that can make a believer out of a lot of folks, as they kicked the shit out of the Rams. I totally did not see that coming. I know probably nobody saw that coming. That's why the Rams were favored by 4.5 points in that damn game. They kicked the crap out of them. Cliff Kingsbury right now is looking like Coach of the Year candidate. Kyler Murray is looking like the early leader as the MVP candidate. Like 4-0 is 4-0, and they're the only undefeated team left in the NFL right now. Do I think they're the best team in the league? Absolutely not. Do I think for now, out of respect to the fact that they are the only undefeated team and they did just beat the Rams in dominant fashion, that they belong at number 1 on this list? Absolutely. So those are my rankings and some of my thoughts on some of the teams and where they fell. So you are welcome to let me know what you think in the comments section. Who would be your top 5 teams? If you had to put money on it right now based off of what you've seen in the first 4 weeks of the season, who would be your bet to go to the Super Bowl out of the AFC and NFC? I wonder how different some of the answers would be. I look forward to seeing them.